Primarily today, I wanted to talk about the issuance of Emergency Rule 26, which provides some necessary protections for insured individuals and business owners in Louisiana who are already dealing with the aftermath of Isaac. For example, the emergency rule will enable policyholders who were displaced by Isaac to have access to the coverages provided by their health policies for emergency treatment, even if they are forced by circumstances to go to an out-of-network provider. We specifically tweaked that provision differently from what was in our emergency rule following Gustav 3 years ago to accommodate the provisions contained in PPACA, which has an emergency out-of-network provision contained in it and a payment schedule for such services. And we accommodated and complied with that requirement. In addition to the emergency rule that we issued by virtue of a delegation of emergency authority from Governor Jindal, we also wanted to talk today about what I believe will become the primary issue for claimants in the aftermath of Hurricane Isaac, just as it did in the Baton Rouge area and other areas of our state affected by Hurricane Gustav 3 years ago. I expect hurricane or named storm or wind and hail deductibles to be the big issue. And that's because, for the most part, it will present a claimant with a deductible larger than the amount of the damage they incurred from the hurricane. Folks were shocked. I referred to it as sticker shock in the aftermath of Gustav when they learned that they, in fact, had such a large deductible and therefore had to come out of pocket for the first $5,000, $7,000, maybe even $10,000 of repair, because the deductible, 2%, 3%, 5% typically, is not 2%, 3%, or 5% of the claim, but rather 2%, 3%, or 5% of your insured value. So that for a homeowner with a $150,000 home, a fairly typical home in our state, with a 5% named storm deductible, that's a $7,500 deductible applicable to a $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 roof repair job, even if it's a complete roof on such a home. The legislature, in the aftermath of Katrina and Rita, passed legislation requiring companies to put an extra line in larger than usual print on your deck page, even big enough for me to notice it last year when I was reviewing my deck page and noticed that my named storm deductible was now over $9,000. And I said, whoa, because I remembered the phone call I got 6 years earlier from my wife, who was handling our Katrina claim and was not happy to learn that we had a over $4,000 deductible applicable, hurricane deductible applicable to our Katrina loss. And I assured her that although I didn't recall my agent explaining it to me, I was certain he did, because he's a friend, a neighbor, and a long-time career agent with lots of knowledge and savvy, and offered me what I advise everyone to take, and that is a lower premium by virtue of self-insuring for that higher deductible. And shortly after Rita and Katrina, the United States Congress made it even more beneficial for those of us who opt to have such deductibles, higher deductibles, by passing an act retroactively making any uncompensated damage incurred by a property owner for Rita or Katrina related losses deductible on your federal income tax return, which I had already filed but was able to go back and amend and get over $1,000 additional refund for that over $4,000 deductible that applied to my claim. Congress did that again in 2008 after Hurricanes Gustav and Ike, damaged our state and the state of Texas next door, and hopefully we'll do that again this year in the aftermath of Hurricane Isaac. Being one storm and one state, for the most part, I'm not as confident that they'll do that as I was in 2008 when, was it 8 or 9? 9. 8? Okay, so 4 years. With two states, one of them being the large state of Texas, and one of the events being the huge losses incurred by the victims of Hurricane Ike, in addition to significant damage here in Louisiana by Hurricane Gustav. So that I expect to be the biggest issue, followed closely by flood damage. But I do believe, for the most part, the people of Louisiana have learned from bitter experience that flood damage is not covered by your commercial policy in almost every case. And therefore, you either have flood coverage through NFIP or you don't. And I've heard some victims of Isaac being interviewed and being asked whether they had flood insurance in place, and regrettably saying and acknowledging that they did not, and were hoping that, as has been done in the past, that help would be made available to them for their uninsured loss, either through road home type programs or at a minimum through tax breaks, as I mentioned earlier. We are here to help. That's what insurance departments are there to do. We regulate insurance, all aspects of the insurance industry, but more importantly, we service and look after and assist consumers in dealing with the very complicated, very expensive, and as I also always say, very necessary product that we regulate, that is insurance. And our phones are ringing, not off the hook, frankly, and that's why I'm glad to see your attendance here today to give us the opportunity to urge folks to reach out to us when they have a question that they're not sure of relative to whether or not they should file a claim, whether they have a claim at all to file, how the deductible works. There's been, for the first time in my experience, a lot of questions about tropical named storm deductible versus hurricane deductible. Hurricane hits the coast but drops to a tropical storm by the time it gets to Baton Rouge. How does that work relative to policy language? And the short answer to that question is it depends on your language. Some policies have a 72-hour after the storm is declared a hurricane period embedded in their language. Some have a 48-hour. Some have nothing whatsoever. Florida has opined with a bulletin as Isaac was approaching their state last year that I happened to see online this weekend. And we are dealing with those issues on a case-by-case basis as they are presented. Another often asked question is, will it hurt me? Will my premium go up, or will I lose my coverage if I file a claim? And the answer to that is no. These are, number one, act of God claims. And our sacrosanct 3-year rule has an exception for those who file claims as a result of acts of God, hurricanes, tornadoes, hailstorms, etc. But you can lose your coverage if you have 2 or more non-act of God claims in a 3-year period of time. People are not priced at renewal based on their hurricane claim. They're not increased based on that. Hurricane damages paid by companies are addressed on a statewide basis in their rate filings, not on an individual basis, as is the case with drivers with bad experience in their driving record. So having said those things, I'd like to stop at this point and answer any questions. It certainly had a large effect in the southeast corner of our state. The New Orleans metropolitan area, actually more so the surrounding areas than the inner city and inner suburbs themselves. The good news, the best news, was our $15 billion newly upgraded levee system worked, and it worked in the face of a huge storm surge, a storm surge comparable to Katrina, frankly, from New Orleans and the surrounding areas point of view. So that was a blessing indeed. Some are suggesting that taking that holding pond out of the equation resulted in the rest of the area experiencing flooding that they would not have had in the past. That remains to be seen. After action reports and analysis will be done, and hopefully Congress will be able to help us address that and protect those folks who were flood victims for the first time this time going forward. From an insurance point of view, I think it will be a smaller than Gustav event. Gustav 4 years ago did the bulk of its damage in the Baton Rouge metropolitan area. And frankly, from a market point of view, we recovered from that. Actually, the effect was very minimum from a cost and availability point of view. It did not drive prices up. It did not drive companies out. And that was a good part of how we handled Gustav back then. It was our first real test after Katrina Rita, and got praise in all areas, federal, state, and private industry as well. I think we'll get the same kind of feedback from this event, though it's a smaller event and won't get quite the notice that Gustav got.
What kind of advice do you have for people regarding their insurance policies now?
Well, the first thing they have to know is there's a duty in their policy to minimize their loss. And what that means is if you have a hole in your roof, you need to put a tarp over it and keep it from further damage, mold or additional rainwater getting in and doing further damage. That's a duty under your policy. And your second duty is to report your claim as soon as you're aware of it. Report your loss through your agent to your company, or call us at 1-800-259-5300. We're happy to help. That's what we're here to do. And I think that the next thing they need to do is document their loss. Take pictures. It's easy to do with cell phones, etc. these days. Make a list of what their losses were, what their expenses were. Going back to that duty to minimize any expenses you incur putting a tarp over your roof or other steps you take to minimize or to diminish your loss is an expense of your claim. So you can get reimbursed by your insurance company for that. But all of those reimbursements, all of that coverage is subject to your deductible. And unfortunately, I think a lot of folks are going to find out what a named storm or hurricane deductible is for the first time. When Katrina hit, they were in the minority. Today, they're almost universal, not just in our state, but from Massachusetts to Miami to Mexico, in all coastal states. All of the major and the regional insurers now use named storm deductibles. They're typically 2%, 3%, or 5%, not of your loss, but of your insured value. So a 3% named storm deductible on a $200,000 insured home is a $6,000 deductible. That's significant, and when folks aren't aware of it, even though the legislature passed a bill after Katrina requiring that it be put in larger print and even the amount and do the math for you, folks don't look at those deck pages and take note of what's there. And so when their roof comes off or is severely damaged, has to be replaced, it's going to cost them $5,000, $7,000, $8,000. If they have a $5,000 or a $6,000 deductible, it can be quite a shock and a burden. It resulted in Baton Rouge having blue roofs for a long time after Gustav in 2008. So my bottom line is take the steps necessary to minimize your damage. Report your claim and contact us if you have any trouble understanding how to make your way through the process. If you don't know who your agent is, don't know who your company is, we can help, and as I said before, that's what we're here to do.
In today's announcement, you outlined some emergency rules.
Yes, as I did after Gustav, on a delegation from Governor Bobby Jindal of his emergency powers under the Louisiana Homeland Security Act, I have ordered companies not to cancel or non-renew for 30 days anybody who is adversely affected by this storm and doesn't pay their premium on time. I ordered health insurers to provide coverage as if in-network for those who may be displaced and have to go to a hospital or to a doctor out of network for an emergency treatment, and other similar prescription benefits and coverages almost identical to what we did 4 years ago when we had Gustav come through Louisiana.
If people have questions or like more information, what should they do?
Go to our website at www.ldi.la.gov or just call us 1-800-259-5300.